Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are back again with another episode of the JMO show. The JMO show. Today is a very special episode. It was supposed to come out earlier in the week. I'm recording it over the weekend. It was supposed to come out earlier this week because we officially have hit the what I'm going to call the quarter season mark, the 20 game mark of the season. Obviously, 41 games will be the halfway point, and then we will have 60 goal game, or the 60th game be the 3/4 mark, and then obviously 82 games. If it was 84 games, that'd make everything a lot easier throughout the whole season to do quarter and half and 3/4 report cards and everything. I don't know if it's gonna pick up on the microphone or not, but I still am dealing with the butt end of COVID. Had the full brunt of it earlier this week. I'm trying to get through the end of it, but unfortunately I was very, very sick throughout the week. Couldn't get this out in time to get it out when it was topical, but we are going to do it anyways. Excuse me, sorry. But with that all being said, we're going to hit the beautiful music. Hopefully that'll cure all of my physical ailments, and then we will just get on with the show. Let's do this. Sorry about that. That was my putting down my cup, my extremely loud cup, apparently. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my living room. Remember that last time being sick tried to derail the channel? Yeah, that was only a couple weeks ago, technically, but apparently somebody who's rolling everything, or running everything, I should say, or somebody upstairs just really doesn't want me to have any sort of cohesiveness with this channel at all. But that's okay. I'm gonna bring the microphone over here, actually. We're gonna get going soonish, if I can get this going. But before we do all that, let me just say thank you to everybody that's been following the channel through this year so far. I'm having a lot of fun with this. Been putting a lot of work, a lot of effort into it. One thing that we're going to try to do in the new year is make sure that we have a little more of a cohesive schedule for the JMO episodes. At the very least, announcing episodes like a week beforehand or whatever, releasing a schedule. The other thing would be getting a little more up to date with everything that has to do with getting pictures taken for the thumbnails. The quality of the pictures on there are pretty darn awful, and then on top of all of that, I think it'd be really fun to start getting connected more with you guys, the watchers, the listeners. But that all being said, why am I fuzzy? Hello? Well, that's fun. Focus on me, please, camera. Thank you. This is why we only do one takes, because if I didn't only do one takes, I'd be here for literally like an entire week trying to figure all this stuff out. At least one thing goes wrong every time I record, and then if I try to re-record it, something else goes wrong. And so, as you can see behind me, it's Christmas in my house. I figured I'm sick, I'm out here on the couch. Instead of doing it in front of the blank white wall I did it behind last time, I do it with my Santa Clauses over here, my Christmas tree, and then my beautiful Santa Claus fish over there. Bless me. But you guys aren't here to see my face. You guys are here to see this. This, ladies and gentlemen, actually, technically, this, ladies and gentlemen, is what we are here for. Games played, 20 games this season so far. Obviously, teams have played past 20 games, but we are only looking at the first 20 games of the season. We're going to be giving a grade to each team. This is the quarter term for the 2022-2023 season report card by yours truly. I am the professor of hockey. Not really. As you can see, obviously, losses in overtime or shootout, shootout, which would give you a single point, 2 points, or no points, points total for each team, and then I went through and I figured out regulation wins versus wins in overtime or shootouts, because that is going to help with the tiebreakers. As you can see, there are a couple teams with 24 points that were all tied. It came down to some sort of a tiebreaker, the official rules for the NHL that I followed for that. So as you can see up here, we've got the 2022-2023 season quarterly numbers, and then we've got last year's quarterly numbers, and then we'll take a look at the season final for last year and kind of try to project what we might think will happen for this coming season. As we take a look at this, actually first what we will do is we will take a look at the 10-game spread, the first 10-game spread, and then the second 10-game spread. For this first 10 games, we've got first 10 games, Boston 18 points, and then Vegas with 16, Carolina with 15, and then a couple Buffalo and Edmonton with 14, Dallas, Winnipeg, and Philadelphia with 13 points, and then some of the teams that did not do great with 6 points, Vancouver, San Jose, St. Louis, and Columbus. So definitely a better grade for those upper echelon teams, 9-1-0, obviously for Boston. But looking over at the next 10-point spread, we've got New Jersey with 18 points, Boston with 16, Seattle Kraken with 17 points, 8-1-1, only missing out on 3 points. New Jersey obviously missing out on 2. Boston missing out on 4 with 16 points. Toronto, Pittsburgh, Vegas with 15 points. And then Winnipeg, St. Louis, Dallas, Colorado, all in the same division with 14 points. Definitely made it difficult to rank for the Central Division specifically, because the top 4 teams in the Central all tied with 14 points apiece, that being St. Louis, Winnipeg, Colorado, and Dallas. Now, taking those numbers, obviously coming over here, we've got for the first 20 games, this is our quarterly numbers, Boston, Detroit, and Tampa Bay with 34, 26, and 25 points. Toronto, 25 points, but less regulation wins for them, so they bumped down to a wild card spot. New Jersey Devils, New York Islanders, and New York Rangers, 32, 24, and 24. And then Carolina as well with 24, but less regulation losses. And then we've got Pittsburgh, Florida, Montreal, Philadelphia, Buffalo, Washington, Ottawa, and Columbus, rounding out the rest of the Eastern Conference for the first quarter here. Next, we've got Dallas, Winnipeg, and Colorado. Dallas and Winnipeg tied with set 27, 25 for Colorado, and then Vegas, Seattle, and LA in the Pacific, 31, 27, 23, and then 21 and 20 for Calgary and Edmonton, and then a bunch of other teams, St. Louis, Nashville, and Minnesota, tied with 20 with less regulation losses. Arizona, Vancouver, both tied. They actually are at a strict deadlock. Not only are they tied in regulation wins, they are tied in outright wins. They are tied in games played against each other. Every metric for tiebreakers, they are tied at 16, 15, and 13 for Chicago, San Jose, and Anaheim. Excuse me. Wow. Should put a disclaimer in this video not to wear headphones. So, if we take a look at last year's numbers, we can kind of take a guess at what will happen this year. There's a stat that it's like a little over 77%, roughly, I believe, of teams that are in the playoffs currently as of the quarter mark, as of Thanksgiving, actually, I believe was the number, actually make the playoffs. At the quarter mark this last season, Florida, Toronto, and Tampa Bay, Carolina, Washington, New York, and then Boston, Pittsburgh were in the playoffs. And then Minnesota, Colorado, Dallas, Edmonton, Calgary, Vegas, St. Louis, and Nashville. If we take a look at where these 16 teams ended up, when the playoffs started, Florida, Toronto, Tampa Bay, Carolina, Boston, and Nashville all stayed right where they were. They didn't even move. And then New York Islanders and Pittsburgh moved up 2 spots, and Washington moved down 3. Excuse me. Holy crap. I'm so sorry. Colorado and Minnesota flipped spots. St. Louis moved up 1. Calgary moved up 1. Edmonton went down 1. LA moved up 6 spots. 21 points at the 20 game mark. Ended with 99 points in 82 games, and then Dallas moved down 1. Nashville obviously stayed where they were, and then right here, Vegas moved down 3 spots out of the playoffs. The only team, I believe, that were not in a playoff spot, or that were in a playoff spot that ended up in a playoff spot, but that's very difficult for me to try to project any of those numbers onto this year's team, and on any team really, because all of these teams are so drastically different, and the teams that are that have stayed roughly the same are actually doing quite a lot better than they were this last season. Boston being a great example. Wild card spot to finish out the year, wild card spot at the 20-goal season, top of the league, coming in to this season. Coming into this season in the wild card spot at the 20-game mark. This season at 34 games. So trying to project team. Probability of staying inside the playoffs or not, we're going to be looking at teams that have not been here before to potentially be the first to drop out. So that being strictly talking about last year's numbers, the teams that were not in this spot in either way at the end of the season or at the 20-game mark. That being Islanders, New Jersey, and Detroit, as well as I couldn't find Dallas. I was like, where the heck did Dallas go? And then obviously Seattle here is going to be the biggest one in the West. So if we look up here, the East has moved around the most. In the first 20 games versus last year, obviously Florida, who was at the top of the Atlantic, is in the fourth in the wild card race. And then New York Rangers haven't moved. Washington way at the bottom here. Carolina in a wild card spot. And then Tampa Bay, the only one staying right where they were other than the Rangers. And then obviously Pittsburgh not in a spot. And then we talked about Boston being at the top. Everybody else here has either just shuffled around a little bit. The only big moves would be Minnesota moving down an awful lot, and Nashville moving down a tiny little bit. St. Louis moving up a little bit, moving down a little bit as well. Winnipeg and Seattle being those teams that moved up. So I'm trying to look real quick. St. Louis, Nashville, and Minnesota were the teams that weren't in the playoffs last year, so I did have this wrong a little bit. Winnipeg Seattle, and who's the other team that I missed? Oh, LA. Okay, so they have moved just as much. So I was wrong there. So if we take a look at this, obviously Minnesota, potentially, I would definitely say having the biggest drop so far, considering last year at this time they were first in the divisions, ending at second. Close behind them, Washington, starting at second and ending in the second wildcard spot, currently eighth in their conference. So really a not a good start to the season there for Washington. But like I said, I would predict any of the teams that have been here before, Boston, Tampa Bay, Rangers, Toronto, Carolina, to either stay where they are and move up. And then the same said for Colorado, Vegas. Calgary and Edmonton have been very, very wishy-washy this season. Dallas has been kicking butt a lot more than they were last year, considering they moved down into the wild card spot. But I actually see them projecting a little bit more. Seattle, a lot of people talking about Seattle, the fact that they're going to drop off. If I had to guess actually, let me highlight these guys again. If I were to guess which of the three teams up here, any of these 8 teams to drop out, sadly, I would have to go with Detroit, only because this is very new for them in the past couple seasons to be good, period. The only reason I wouldn't say New Jersey is because of the dominance that they've had, and clearly they did something this season that they just were not doing last season, considering they ended where Washington is right now. So I'd actually bet that New Jersey and Washington, to spoil what I'm going to ask myself in a second, New Jersey and Washington are probably going to swap spots this year. Washington is my pick to drop out of the playoffs. If I had to pick a second, I think the Islanders, as they are doing really, really good right now, there's every chance in the world that they could fall back into that team that they were last year. As you can see, they started the season poorly and moved up, so there is every reason to think that they could move. And obviously, as we're seeing with the Islanders doing really well, New Jersey doing really well, and Detroit doing pretty good, above expectations, I would say. That's 3 juggernaut teams that you're seeing there: Washington, Florida, and Pittsburgh, and 2 teams doing well above expectation at the beginning of the season, and even more above expectations for the season, I would say, for Detroit. So with that said, I would say Detroit to be the most likely to drop out, Florida Washington to be most likely to stay out. Going over to the Western Conference, I honestly think this might be where we end the season. The only 2 actually that I would say could are going to fluctuate enough, of the ones that are highlighted, being LA and maybe St. Louis or Minnesota. Honestly, any of these 3 teams, the one that I have the least amount of confidence in would be Nashville, and then Minnesota, and then St. Louis I have the most confidence in, except for all of their streaks that they've had. They've been very, very streaky. LA is the one I have the least confidence in of these 3. Seattle, I'm rooting for them as much as I am for Vegas. Everybody gives them a hard time. just because they're new, just because they're doing really, really well. Everybody's going to stand there, point and laugh and say, well, that ain't going to last very long. And I honestly hope it does, because I want them to do well. I want them to prove people wrong. And then Winnipeg just coming back into the dominance that they used to be in. I know a couple people that are going to be really happy if they can stick around. So it's honestly it's too close to call for the West right now. I think as we get closer to the midterm, we'll have a better idea. So I'm gonna leave the West alone and keep Detroit and Washington as my picks in the East. So with that all being said, let me move back over here. Hello. Oh. Come on, man, camera. This camera sucks. Whatever. We're gonna be blurry, I guess, for a little while. So if I were to give out a couple of grades, let's go with A+ first. A+ is first team that comes to mind for me, Seattle. Absolutely crushing all expectation. Everybody started this year laughing at them, pointing fingers and laughing, pulling their pants down, anything that they could to embarrass them, and they're embarrassing us. New Jersey, another one, and then obviously Boston. Boston, I would say A+ as well. A for an A, and actually I'd love to keep track of this if I can, but I don't think I will for now, just because this is so off the cuff, but I am going to make sure I give a grade for each team, so I will keep track of that. For A's, we'll go with Vegas. Vegas doing very, very well, but not they are also streaky. So it's very difficult to be as confident as them as I would like to be. Sorry, I'm trying to look at these numbers. I wish I had a better look at these numbers so that I could look at you and the numbers. Man. Who else do I give an A to? I honestly don't think there's any other team that I can confidently give an A to. Those teams, other than Seattle, obviously. Well, okay, Winnipeg. I would like to give an A to Winnipeg. I think that they're doing just with as much as Seattle. I think that they're taking care of business as much as they can. We're actually going to move down to F- because I really, really want to talk about them. Washington, just because of the expectation, because of the fact that they have the greatest goal scorer of our generation in Alex Ovechkin on their team, continuing to do some of the some of the best work of his career, and their team is abysmal. 17 total points. That puts them tied for fourth worst. Other teams that I'm going to give an F- to, Anaheim. Anaheim, just really awful. They've got some of the best young guys on that team getting completely bogged down by all the old dudes, and then when you have a young team with an old core that does not look willing to help that young core, there's no way to grow. Just an F for these next ones, Columbus and Chicago, as well as Buffalo, who had 2 whole points in the second group of games, 2-8-0. I'm also going to throw Arizona in there as well. Let's go to F plus. Keep it with the negatives for a second. F plus. Let's give an F plus to Philadelphia for given torts. We'll put them up one because of how bad they're doing. Because they gave Torts a little bit of light at the end of his tunnel, and then completely collapsed that said tunnel. They didn't collapse the entrance. They still got plenty of time till the end of the season. But if the tunnel is this big, they've crashed right around here, and they still got this much further to go. We'll do a little bit more positive one for a second. A minus. Any A minuses I want to give out. A minus would be anybody that's just doing good. That would be Tampa and Toronto. Begrudgingly, I will give them A minuses. Actually, I'm gonna move over to this one. I think this one that I'm looking at right now is gonna be a little bit more helpful with figuring this out. I'll give an A minus to Detroit. Detroit definitely doing better expectation. Dallas, I'll give A minus to. Colorado, I'll give that A minus to as well. Literally anybody that is in a playoff spot, a actual playoff spot right now, I feel obligated to give a at least an A to. That being actually New Jersey. Didn't I give New Jersey an A plus? New Jersey got an A plus. If I didn't say that, the Islanders and the Rangers, I'll give an A minus to. LA, I'll give an A minus to. Why not? Instead of, I was gonna give them a B plus, but they are in an official playoff spot right now. So going on to B plus, we've got anybody that is currently in a wild card spot, that being Carolina, Edmonton, and Calgary. Carolina, Calgary, and Edmonton. Doing well, but very streaky, especially for Edmonton and Calgary. I don't know what's going on with them, but just not very impressive at all. And speaking of not very impressive, we're just going to slap a bunch of D's on some things. Very unimpressive teams for the D's: San Jose, Ottawa, Vancouver, D minus to Vancouver. Give them a big minus. Vancouver, D minus. I don't think any D pluses for anybody. Montreal, we'll give a C. Big old fat C to Montreal. And then, so the teams that we have left, that on purpose have left, are Minnesota, Florida, Nashville, Pittsburgh, and St. Louis. Nashville, 20 games, 20 points. They're 9-9-2, so they're not even at 100. St. Louis, I'll give a C to, St. Louis, I'll give a B to, because at the very least they're at 100. Nashville and Minnesota, I'm gonna give a C to. So a B to St. Louis, a C to Nashville and Minnesota, and then Florida for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's been doing a pretty decent job. Let's give Pittsburgh a C. And then Florida, I think Florida is going to be the last one that I do today because I want to have a little fun with Florida. Fourth in the wild card spot, 22 games, 20 points, 9-8-2. So technically they're at 10, they're at 100, but they've got 2 overtime losses, so they get 2 points from that. We're going to give a C minus to our final one today. And also C minus. I was going to give them a C, but the big old minus is because they were the President's Trophy winners last year. What in the world is going on? So, if somebody I can go back through, and even though these are on a whim, I can go back through and log these so that I can track their overall grades throughout the season and then give them a full grade at the end of the season. So I'll probably do that. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. So my grading scale is going to be the discussion today. My opinion for today, which is something that I would actually like to state. The just my opinion part of the show. Actually, the just my opinion part of the show for today is going to be the fact that I honestly think that New Jersey is the best team this season. It's not a particularly hot take in any way, but the fact that Boston had a better start to the season, 18 points in the first half of the season so far, 16 in the second. New Jersey, 12 in the first and 18 in the second. So, 4 points behind Boston, but I honestly do think they're the better team this year. So I would say New Jersey, Boston, and then probably Vegas, and then Seattle. Seattle, pretty comfortably in my opinion, the fourth. And then we'll say Dallas. Dallas has been pretty good. Dallas and Winnipeg. We'll do Dallas and Winnipeg, tied for fifth. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is just my opinion. And I'm actually going to throw the banner up. I wasn't going to, but I am. With that, ladies and gentlemen, like, share, and subscribe. Do everything that you deem necessary for this episode here today. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, tell your friends. And we're going to get out of here to the dulcet tones of this indie pop beautiful song that we always do. Bye, guys.